Well, good evening, friends. Good to see you. Glad you're here with us today. And I know we'll get a few more as a minute comes over here. Always great to hear a little lively Bruce Springsteen and E Street Band on an afternoon, right? So as we get underway today, just hopefully you can, and if you'd be so kind, I see a few of your friends here. If you wouldn't mind just repopulating it in there, I'll put it in every now and then. Hey, Tara, again, hey, Andrea, hey, Brad, Sarah, see you all here. It's great. Ben, Dave. So again, I'll just put it in one more time. And if someone, we usually have people join a few minutes late or something. So please just repopulate that in the chat, which you see there, again, the link as we go, because that'll help people continue to engage as we go. So with that, I'm going to get us underway. And this is a reminder, as always, a few things. We just take time because you are a well. So let's just remind ourselves, get in that frame of mind. You are a well. People come to you as a leader because they thirst. They thirst for knowledge, so they come to you. They thirst for resolution, so they come to you. They thirst for a listening ear, that and 100 other things, and that's all right and good because you're a servant leader and that's what servant leaders do. But again, why we come here to this, because these sessions are a well to get replenished. Well, the key question is, in this era of unprecedented need, how do servant leaders like us replenish the well before the well goes dry? And that's about compassion, resilience. It's about self-care. And again, I think these sessions, I hope for you, are becoming and serving as a well. And if you're doing this with your people, are you not just sharing these things or sharing some things, but are you also talking about the why behind it? That's what I hope you're seeing. I'm intentionally trying to do is always share intentionally. We start with it, we end it. Why are we doing this? Because you are a well. Your teachers are wells. Anyone that's working to serve others is a well, and they need to take intentional effort to replenish so they can continue to serve. And remember, again, we always want to get really clear about what we're trying to build. We're trying to build compassion, resilience, which again is a reservoir of well-being. There's that well idea again, a reservoir of well-being that we can draw upon on difficult days and in difficult situations. I think what I see is a number of people have been intentionally working on this, and I can see the product of that. And you're some of those people, right? And I hope you can see it too. When we put intentionality to this, we have a resource. Not every day is going to be perfect, of course, maybe no day is, but we can get through. We'll probably never be the same, but we can definitely get through, and we will, especially with some intentionality around this. One of the more resilience definition, again, if you prefer this one, just the ability to overcome challenges and to bounce back stronger, wiser, more personally powerful. So again, grab the one that grabs your heart and mind and inspires you. But either way, that's what we're building. Let's be really intentional about that as we go. And again, this is the map of what we've been trying to do through the year. We're actually in our second to last session for the year. So a lot of familiar faces, a lot of a nice community that's been built over the time here. But this is today about building community and empathy. And we're going to start with a couple quick little videos, get you thinking about what those terms are and what they're not, particularly around the idea of empathy. So this is a great one from Brene Brown. I know some of you have seen this before. I've seen it multiple times. Every time I see it, I love it. I get something more out of it. So if it's new or repeated, again, we're going to be talking about a few questions. Here are the questions we're going to get to. So maybe look at these up front and then watch the video with at least like, how is empathy different from sympathy? Because remember, we're talking about how we build empathy and community today. And then, so if you understand the difference, then how is empathy related to building community? And then finally, what wisdom or guidance about these videos, even the funny parts of them maybe, could help you and others improve both their empathy building and community building. Okay, so that's the kind of the previewing foci. So here's the first video, enjoy, on empathy versus sympathy. And it is in the slide deck, but just so it'll load a little bit quicker, I'm going to, okay, let me lock out of here. Some reason here, 1 second. You know how it locks in sometimes? There we go. So I'm just gonna get us started right from scratch here. Here we go.
So what is empathy, and why is it very different than sympathy? Empathy fuels connection. Sympathy drives disconnection. Empathy, it's very interesting. Teresa Wiseman is a nursing scholar who studied professions, very diverse professions where empathy is relevant, and came up with 4 qualities of empathy: perspective taking, the ability to take the perspective of another person or recognize their perspective as their truth, staying out of judgment, not easy when you enjoy it as much as most of us do, recognizing emotion in other people and then communicating that. Empathy is feeling with people. And to me, I always think of empathy as this kind of sacred space when someone's kind of in a deep hole and they shout out from the bottom and they say, I'm stuck, it's dark, I'm overwhelmed. And then we look and we say, hey, you climb down. I know what it's like down here. And you're not alone. Sympathy is, ooh, it's bad, no. You want a sandwich? Empathy is a choice, and it's a vulnerable choice, because in order to connect with you, I have to connect with something in myself that knows that feeling. Rarely, if ever, does an empathic response begin with at least. Yeah. And we do it all the time. Because you know what? Someone just shared something with us that's incredibly painful, and we're trying to silver lining it. I don't think that's a verb, but I'm using it as one. We're trying to put the silver lining around it. So, I had a miscarriage. Oh, at least you know you can get pregnant. I think my marriage is falling apart. At least you have a marriage. John's getting kicked out of school. At least Sarah is an A student. But one of the things we do sometimes in the face of very difficult conversations is we try to make things better. If I share something with you that's very difficult, I'd rather you say, I don't even know what to say right now, I'm just so glad you told me. Because the truth is, rarely can a response make something better. What makes something better is connection.
All right, so there's the first one. Here's the second. It's also in the slide deck, but just for ease, I'll go right to it. Again, on the idea of difference between empathy and sympathy, one more quick one.
It's just, there's all this pressure, you know? And sometimes it feels like it's right up on me, and I can just feel it, like literally feel it in my head, and it's relentless. And I don't know if it's going to stop. I mean, that's the thing that scares me the most, is that I don't know if it's ever going to stop.
Yeah. Well, you do have a nail in your head.
It is not about the nail.
Are you sure? Because, I mean, I'll bet if we got that out of there...
Stop trying to fix it.
No, I'm not trying to fix it. I'm just pointing out that maybe the nail is causing...
You always do this. You always try to fix things when what I really need is for you to just listen.
No, see, I don't think that is what you need. I think what you need is to get the nail
See,
out.
you're not even listening now.
Okay, fine. I will listen. Fine.
It's just... Sometimes it's like there's this achy... I don't know what it is. And I'm not sleeping very well at all. And all my sweaters are snagged. I mean, all of them.
Yeah, that sounds really hard.
It is. Thank you. Ow!
Oh, come on. Ow. If you would just...
Don't...
Try to see things my way. Do I have to keep on talking till I can go on?
All right, so friends, we have two that you've probably seen before, but have you thought about it in the context that we just talked about, particularly about these days? I know we all, how many times a day are someone coming to you as, you're the well, and they need something from you, and maybe you're that fixer. I know I'm a inveterate fixer. I'm trying to recover from, hi, I'm Joe. I'm a chronic fixer. I'm trying not to be that person, because that doesn't help people. That's what I'm learning that over time. But they'll still come to the well, right? And so, friends, as we get into this, I was going to put you into breakouts, but we only had like 7 people here today. So I think we just do this slide here. So what I'm going to do is see these questions here again. How is empathy different from sympathy? Let's start with that one. And then we'll get into how is the other ones, how is empathy related to building community, et cetera. But just like to hear, I'm gonna turn this down here. Just feel free to just pop on the mic and let us know your thoughts. How do you see the difference, whether from the videos or something else that you've read or encountered over your experiences?
I'll jump in.
Thank you.
Hi, everybody. Ben Henninger. I'm up in Gresham. We had our first really serious threat to our school this week, and we've been kind of running with it. And nobody knows how to react to it, and they're all looking to us to give them guidance and support in a very traumatic situation for our staff. And I used to work in a much bigger district where these kinds of things happen all the time. And so I all too often forget that in a small community like ours, whenever you have something like this happen, people want to know that things are going to be okay. And so I can really empathize with people who don't know what to do next when suddenly they realize, oh, we're not in this safe little community that we thought we were before. All those things that we took for granted are kind of upended now. It's like, what is safe? Who do we trust? Who can we talk to? And I guess this is one of those cases where I could say, I sympathize with the fact that, you just haven't been in that situation before because you've been in a small school so long, whereas I've been in a bigger district before. So I know that this stuff happens all the time. And the way I handle it was just listening to our staff and saying, you know what, I can totally understand that, when something like this happens, we haven't done it before. I'm just here to listen. I'm here to tell you that, you know what, things are going to be fine and we're going to get through it. And I don't know why, I'm not a man of faith necessarily, but we have each other and we're going to deal with things one day at a time, because that's how we get through the school year, like the one that we just had.
Yeah, and we're still having, right? So thank you, Ben, for getting us underway. How about others? Again, difference as you see it, again, if you come with the idea of as we grow towards more masterful understanding of anything from novice to expert, if you will, what we actually do is you can look at that journey as we gather more distinctions. Like, so what's the distinction we make between sympathy and empathy? It's a key part of, I think, our growth as how to be helpful to others. So what else are you coming to understand the distinction?
Hey, Joe, this is Dave from Chippewa Falls. I think the main thing from the one video is that difference in connection, right? When we say we sympathize with somebody, we're kind of showing the difference, right? I'm here and you're there, right? And so right away, when we say something that seems sympathetic, we're kind of drawing attention to that gap, between where I am and where you are, as opposed to the empathy, right? Even if we have to say some things, I think I can understand that, right? Because sometimes we probably can't. So we can't kind of share that we empathize because we've been there too, and so we have to be a little bit careful of that at times. But I think we can say, I think, things like, thanks for sharing that. I think I can understand, where you're coming from or where you are, based on my experience or something like that. So it definitely, when someone draws attention to the difference, it's definitely about that connection. As soon as I can say, I've been there too, and I think I understand how you feel, as opposed to I feel sorry for you, which again, kind of draws attention to where I am versus where you are.
Yeah. Thank you, Dave. How about another? Anyone else as you're getting clearer about the difference? Yeah, go ahead. I'm Sarah first, and then I'll see Tara. Yeah.
Well, I was just going to share that this continues to be a journey for me to be more empathetic now, because I don't think I'm a decent human being, but I think in the fixing piece of it, that doesn't allow for me always to be empathetic, because I want to take action and make it better. And so I've tried to be really mindful of the people who make me feel best when I'm in a tough spot myself, and try to really think about what words or what phrases they use. And it's really often I'm just validating what I've said, and saying I'm sorry that this is how your day has been, or it really is. When they make it about me, that makes me feel better than when they make it about them. So that's trying to take my experience that supported me to support the next person that I'm interacting with.
To Sarah's point, did you all catch in the second video, and you've seen that one before, right? But there's this point in this where the guy makes, it is a very intentional thing. He almost bites his lip. And then do you remember what he says? That must be hard. kind of what you're saying. He's has a bite. Like, I'm not going to try fixing it, right? And I'm just to acknowledge that, and then you see her reaction. It made all the difference, and that's something, I don't know what it is, but do you have, one of the things is, do you have almost like a phrase you can use? In the earlier video, you heard, I think the character, it's cartoon characters, but the empathetic one had said, I don't even know what to say. I'm just glad that you would share that with me. So I don't know what it is, but I think partly, at least my journey has been a little bit about, can I get a kind of a go-to phrase or two to work against my natural instinct to be a helper, which isn't really helpful to people in this situation, and kind of get me to disrupt the typical pattern of fixing. At least that's my journey. I don't know if you have that, but I find like a phrase or two, and I think either of these videos, and they're in the slide deck, so you can return to them. You can just kind of see how in both situations, people make a decision intentionally to interact and say something differently that has a whole different trajectory about helpfulness in that situation to the other. Tara, you've been waiting so patiently. So what do you have to add to this?
Maybe a connection between what Sarah added and what you added, Joe, that I find it interesting that in the greeting card aisle that there are sympathy cards, when really empathy is probably what we're craving most, and how those connections are formed. And we as leaders often get the dumping ground of certain concerns of staff members or community members, and it's not for us to judge what the concern is, because many times we've had the experience where we're thinking, like, if that's your biggest problem, like, I will trade you all day long. But in their world, that is right in front of them. And again, they wanted that validation that, this is hard for me right now. And so using that growth language of yet in some of those phrases, and kind of being able to kind of reframe the language. But when I think of empathy and sympathy, it always strikes me that we send sympathy cards, or use the word sympathy for loss or for something that seems sad, but really empathy probably would be a greater fixer or connector in that instance.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of you have led efforts around choice words, right? We know the importance of the correct, or a better, not correct maybe, but a better, more descriptive vocabulary for how that can change thinking. And so I think, Tara, that's what I hear you really saying, is really, really mindful about the language that we use, because sympathy has a different connotation than empathy. And if we're coming from a spot intentionally of empathy and knowing how that differs distinctively, it can put us in a different spot of how to interact, right, and serve. I've also noticed this, that going back to the well analogy, when my well is dry, it's really hard for me to be empathetic. I really have a hard time with that. So again, we sometimes feel guilty in self-care and building our own compassion, resilience. And this is just a reminder, I think, of when we do that, we're better able to be from a space of empathy rather than sympathy, and from a spot of truly helping others and not just trying to, deal with them and move on with the next task. So we have time for one more. If anyone has the questions, about, maybe I'll just move to another question. How is empathy related to building community? Any thoughts on that? Again, how is empathy related to building community? Hey, Andrea, what are you thinking?
Hi, I'm Andrea. I'm up in Superior. But I was just thinking about the time aspect, just the time to sit and talk to people and build those relationships. I'm in year 4 of being an assistant principal, and just the time for people to trust and to know a little bit about you, and the importance of those connections and with the family and community members. Because then you do start seeing people come together and being able to share more and understand and listen to each other. So just having those opportunities with the different groups, which is harder during COVID, obviously, especially with community and parent groups, but just even within your staff, and just hearing how they're feeling and doing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, your empathy is a social currency that you can build community with, I think, so as you people, that whole phrase, right? People want to know how much you care before they care how much you know. And, so again, this session today is about building community and empathy. And I think one of the takeaways I hope we all have, if we don't have it coming in, that we have it leaving, is that through empathy, we're actually building community one person at a time, because it's a social currency. That's just, you know, it's kind of a fuel, I think, or certainly a lubricant for creating a really healthy, flowing kind of community that you want to have. And Sarah, you were looking for some resources. I saw that in the text. Were you able to find any? If you do, I'd be, okay, yeah, that's great, right? Because those are kind of helpful things you can go to, right? And so if you come across it, let me know, and I will push it out one of these remaining sessions. That'd be great. All right. So I'm gonna keep us moving, because we have a couple other things we want to do yet. So thanks, great for leaning into that, everybody. I got to share my screen again. Let me do that before I get too far along. So Ben, yeah, go ahead.
I'm not sure what.
Oh, okay.
7:55. Those two pieces of information. You can do it.
All right. I think that was inadvertent, so I'll just keep going. So I'm going to look at a couple of things in the remaining time from Elena Aguilar. And one of the things that about building community now, we're going to segue from the empathy piece to the building community. Again, there's connections. And how about you? Have you had this situation? So just like I just want to read with you here this opening part. There were many times when, as a new teacher, I didn't know how to respond when veteran teachers made disrespectful comments about students. It happened again and again, and further into my career when I joined a new staff. I didn't want to alienate my new colleagues, and I didn't know what to say when they spoke disparagingly about students. And, you know, this isn't just about teachers, about anybody, right? You hear this in people around you, especially when people have their wells running dry, right? So you can see the sorts of things on here. Comments like you see, and they're bulleted, and of course some of them are curse, as you see in the is this. So the whole idea of this, and I'm going to open this up. It's in the link. I'll just put it's within the bit.ly link, you know, all the things in the bit.ly link that I shared earlier. I saw Tara, thanks again, Tara, for putting that out there earlier. This is the actual link to this document now. If you want, I just put it in the chat. This is that resource. And so this is kind of what we were just talking about with Sarah. She was trying to find that resource she had about like phrases to really help build empathy that you can use. Like, I don't even know what to say, but I'm just thankful that you shared it with me. That would be maybe one. How about phrases when people say things that are the antithesis of being a caring professional, the antithesis of building you know, because of how they talk and depersonalize people or what have you. So this is a quick little document. I'm gonna ask you to look at. Basically, she's giving you a number of resources, more than you would ever use, but at least 20 of them here. You can kind of see. So here are some things you could say when you hear such a comment. And so you'll just see them as you go. Let me just kind of frame this up for 30 seconds. I'm going to give you some time to do this. So then once you do that, I want you to then pick at least one or a couple that you, first off, which make you feel might be able to say. In fact, I'm going to go back to my slide deck, because my slide deck shows it more clearly here. But this is, you know, this next slide is basically the bottom of that document, which you probably just opened. And if you didn't, it's in the chat. Scroll down to the bottom of the second page. So what I'm going to ask you to do here in the next 5 minutes is just review those, and then do what you see here. Which of these statements might you be able to say that you think could be helpful for you in a situation like this? And I'm sure we all can pull up a situation, maybe even recently or today. And then you can turn your screen off and your sound off in the next next 4 minutes, and actually try saying it. Maybe if you have a mirror, just say it. Get in that position of feeling like there's a position in the body that gives you strength and courage to say something in an important way. And then reflect on the last question you see here. So again, I'm looking at the time. It's 4:24. I would like us to take the next 5 minutes. I'll come back at 4:29. So we'll be back in 5 minutes. And please take this exercise on. Turn off your mic and your camera if you like, but I'll see you back in 5 minutes. And if the task is unclear, let me know. Okay, friends, why don't you come on back, please, and just process the experience here a little bit. So in the first exercise off the videos, right, we were trying to equip you with some ways to think about how to be with others, right? How to be helpful, how to be empathetic and build that, because certainly people are hurting. in this exercise, we're thinking about how to be differently present, right? And building a community when someone basically says something that violates, goes across the line of maybe what you are trying to become and be as a full community of professionals serving everybody that comes to you. So I'm just kind of curious. Can I get 3 people here? I'm just looking for hands. They're just willing to share. Like, so I tried this out. Here's what kind of crossed my mind. Here was, how it might be helpful. I'm just kind of curious. I could just hear what about this could be helpful for you, or what was your experience as you tried a few of these out and possibility of using them down the line. Do I have any volunteers to share what you're thinking? Andrea, why don't you start us? Oh, I'm sorry. Andrea, I'm going to go with you first, please.
Oh, okay. I think one of our big focuses has just been like our impact on students. So I liked the question, where like, how do you think your feelings impact the students we teach? And then as you put the slide up too, I'm just gonna hold, it's right on my desk, but we've been reading Coaching for Equity, and I see some people nodding along. And then we actually have like a quote sheet too with like coaching questions to ask like teachers after observations, or instructional coaches use those. So I think just building that connection and letting teachers have a voice and just kind of talking them through things, and then having that toolbox has been helpful.
Yeah, so you're equipping yourself, but you're also equipping others, right? And that's great. And you're also, I heard you also, not just things you could use, but things questions you could write, right? You could have to coach others up. So thank you. I don't know if I saw the hand because I can't see all at once, but I did hear a male voice. Who is next on that?
Hi, Joe. This is Bob Sanders from Sparta School District.
Hi, Bob.
And hi. I'll just tell you what my normal go-to phrase for something like this, and the people who work with me know that one of my catchphrases is, I love everybody. And so it was kind of at the bottom where I was like, hey, you know what? I love everybody, and it's hard for me to hear you say something negative about someone I care about. And I usually just end the conversation. So what was not compelling to me was that most of these ended with a question, as if the conversation should continue. And that's just naturally not something I've done. I just wanted to end it. So that's something I will try to work on, is using one of these question phrases to have a dialogue with that person rather than just ending it.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Bob. That's a nice insight, right? So you've been basically communicating to people that really don't want to, be part of any kind of thinking like that. If you go further, what you're thinking about now, it might be actually, okay, now an opportunity not just to be clear about what you stand for, but also how to help them grow through the exchange. So that's wonderful. So thank you for that insight on that. Do I have one more? Just kind of curious as we all try to build some chops around this.
Yeah, Joe, I'll jump in. I like the one that says, what makes you think that way, or what makes you think they don't care? Because I think that kind of puts some detail to it rather than just making those general statements. I think that just that open question, what makes you feel that way? As far as a question go, a lot of times for me, what I've used just as a statement to kind of is, I think it's more complicated than that. So when someone says that student is lazy, right, or that student doesn't care, or his parents just don't care, I'll just usually say something that I wonder if it's more complicated than that, and let kind of space and time just kind of go there to get people thinking that it's probably not simple, right? There's no simple answer to that, or simple solution, or it simply can't be that simple. And asking them to think a little bit deeper about that situation. That's worked pretty well for me.
Yeah, wonderful. I'll just ask, is there someone else that wanted to share? I was going to move on, but I'll have one more if anybody else wants to share.
Joe, if I could add on to that, Ken
Sure.
McCormick from Greenfield. And in what Dave just said, resonated with me a lot as well. And I liked the statement that said, I know that all families care about their kids, even though these actions don't seem to express caring. I wonder what's making it hard for me to understand that family's caring. And I like that, because I think we've all been frustrated at some point with a family or a parent or a student or something, and just to refocus that on what am I missing, or where can I look to find out where that, why that caring is not being shown in the way I would anticipate. So I think that's just a nice way of framing that question, and then getting us focused on a solution, rather than just complaining about a situation too. That, where can we find that caring?
Yeah, right on, Ken. So thank you. One of the things I'm hearing, and are you making this connection? Again, the topic for today's session is really around building community and empathy. We said earlier, building empathy, being empathic is a way of building community one person at a time. But also, what's happening here is a lot of the questions you're settling in on are really about helping to build understanding. And that's what empathy is, right? Is understanding from the view of the other. And so I hope you're hearing that too, because that's what almost every one of you have kind of settled in on, is this idea of a coaching question, which helping me understand you about how you're trying to understand the other or not. And really through the coaching, through the stems you're using, it's really about, building even in disagreement around this, an effort, a sincere effort, it sounds like, to be understanding, one is to be curious around this. I also hope you notice that, because all this is about building tools, right? And having things that get us more impactful in our work of servant leadership. I hope you're also noticing as we go through this, the importance of practice. A lot of you have been coming here regularly, just almost like a workout. Like, I'm going to come here monthly and I'm going to work on some aspect of this. But even like the mini, we just took 4 or 5 minutes for you to pick one or two and then practice it out. So you can start, it could be a go-to for you. So I hope that, if there's something that really helped you today, you could see the use, just give it some reps, because this comes from, again, Aguilar's book, The Compassion Resilience Toolkit. And the whole premise of it is that we can grow ourselves into these kind of people. But it does take intentionality around building these into habits. And then through the habits, they become dispositions. So through through intentional action, we become a better version of ourselves. That's the whole idea of this. So it doesn't take a lot, but it does take some intentionality. And you would never try to overwhelm yourself with all the bulleted ideas. Pick 1, 2, or 3 and just work on them. Start to integrate them, where after a while, it just is natural. It comes out of you because it's such a core part of how you think, and you become that. And that's a go-to that just is naturally in your toolbox and at the top of your toolbox because you're using it so much. It's not that one that's sitting in the bottom of it that you maybe bring out once every 3 years. That's the idea of this, right? So thank you. That's wonderful. Let me do one more thing here before we wrap up today. And it's one more item from her work. And again, you can access this. I'll put it again in the chat, but it's also through the slide deck. You could just click on the slide. But again, I'll just quick do this. Lots of different ways of getting it. It's actually in the session 7 bit.ly link as well. But this is another document. This is a little tool. It's really kind of ideas. So again, we're about building community and empathy. So this one's gonna be real quick. Just look at the opening paragraph. I'm gonna read this silently, just the opening paragraph, please. So again, I'm just showing the first part of the list. You don't have to read all 60, but what I'm gonna ask you to do, just take 3 minutes and start reading through this. And I'd like you to put in the chat, like maybe I'll give you 3, 4 minutes. By the end of that time, just if the number of any, if it's number 6, I really like that, whatever, that you would say, like, I'm going to do that. Like maybe it's just one of them, maybe it's 1 or 2 or 3, but just in the next week, the next month, somewhere in the near future, you're going to start. That's the idea that you want to do, to intentionally little things to start building more community in your space. So go ahead, take 3, 4 minutes, and then we'll just put it in the chat as you're ready to share what's connecting for you to use. Now, as you're reading these, of course, she's writing this for typically a teacher audience. So you might need to ramp up the level of where she's saying something to the office staff. It might be for you, your systems office staff, district office staff, what have you. Just keep that in mind. I'll get out of your way. Okay, they're starting to come in. So again, if you would be so kind, again, just something that's really resonating. That's an idea that I know a lot of you are already doing a number of these things, and it would never be about doing all these things. But these are ideas, and they don't have to be big things. They're the little things. Again, just like being empathetic, one person at a time. These actions build community. So don't have to be moving mountains to make progress up the mountain, right? So again, it just wanted what's resonating, be interesting to put in there by number if you can. And we'll just give you about another maybe 30, 60 seconds just to do that, and then we'll wrap up the session. So as you're doing that, I just want to kind of remind us what we've done. So we're trying to build community and empathy today. We first looked at 2 videos that helped you think about how you interact when someone's really in need, when someone's really hurting, and to think about the difference of how you can have an empathetic stance rather than a sympathetic stance. Then we talked about how you might intervene with someone who's crossed the line in terms of something that would actually destroy community or depersonalize, dehumanize someone, how you could effectively state what you're about and maybe invite them into a different way of thinking. And then this last one is to be more proactive. It's just like things you do, right, to build community. So there are 3 different ways of thinking about how you build empathy and community in this today. I hope you found at least one of those 3 different ways, maybe something in each of these, because it takes, effort, intentionality, and sustained effort across multiple fronts, I think, to really get powerfully impactful in these ways and continue to build the well. So just great that you spend time at the end of a busy day to come here with me today. I really appreciate that. So as you know, we are trying to really do this. And part of this is just to not be perfectionists, is just to understand a lot of our compassion resilience is about our ability to remain optimistic amid an imperfect world. And we can't change that nature of people or the world, but we can choose to remain optimistic and to have tools and approaches like we talked about today. I think there's a key way to keep in that mindset of optimism. So let's just take, again, we review a few things every time we come together. Let's take 1 more minute as we close about why we're doing this. Enjoy.
As the legend goes, an old Cherokee was teaching his grandson about life. He said to the boy, "A fight is going on inside me. It is a terrible fight, and it is between 2 wolves. One is evil. He is anger, envy, sorrow, regret, greed, guilt, lies, superiority, and ego. The other is good. He is joy, peace, love, hope, humility, kindness, empathy, generosity, truth, compassion, and faith. The same fight is going on inside you, and inside every other person too. The grandson thought about it for a minute, and then he asked his grandfather, which wolf will win? The old Cherokee simply replied, the one you feed.
So thanks again, friends. Really appreciate you being here today. I want to remind you that we will be our last session for the series. It will be in a month on May 4th, same time. And this one will be on positive self-talk and self-perception. So again, this is being recorded. It'll be out and posted within 24 hours. So if you want to review it, if you want to encourage others to view it, it's there for you, as all of these are. And until next time, let's stay in touch. Let me know how things are going. If I can be of help, you know how to reach me, please. God bless you all. Have a great rest of your night and see you soon.
Thanks, Joe.
My pleasure, everyone.